Welcome, everybody, to the Just Very podcast. I'm super excited about our guest today. His name's TJ Beaudette. TJ is a presence coach, entrepreneur, and PhD student in depth psychology. Before stepping into his coaching practice, TJ served as an infantry officer in the Marine Corps and gained industry experience in medical sales. He earned his MBA from Duke University in 2022. An avid outdoor enthusiast and ultra runner, TJ is passionate about exploring the intersection of personal growth, resilience, and intentional living. Welcome, TJ.
Thanks, Jess. I appreciate that, reading my bio and having me on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You're one of the people that I love talking to because every time after a conversation, I feel like my perception of the world has just been expanded. So I'm super excited for the conversation.
Thanks, Jess. Me too.
I want to take everyone back to the first time that we met because it was out in the middle of nowhere in Sedona, out in the desert. So tell us what you were doing out there.
Yeah, that's funny. So I had just quit my job and I was sharing the journey on LinkedIn. And basically, I packed up my apartment in Dallas and just started road tripping around the West Coast, posting about where I was. And that week I was camping in the Sedona Desert. And I forget how we connected, but it was on LinkedIn. And it's like, hey, I'm heading south through Sedona. And it just worked out perfectly that we were able to link up in the desert. And that was super cool.
Yeah, because I was moving from Utah to Arizona and taking that trip down, I think, and then you were just traveling through it, so it worked out.
Yeah, a unique way to meet for the first time.
Yes, but super cool because I think we talked for like an hour or two, like just sitting out there in the desert. I think he gave me a banana out of your car. He's just like, had some fruit. I'm like, cool. I thought it was so cool that you're just out there by yourself. I feel like a lot of people either are afraid or just don't know even how to go out and have an experience like that by themselves. What led you to be out there just on your own, embracing like where you were at in your journey? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I mean, to acknowledge the fear is super important because it is scary to go out and be alone and confront one's own feelings or fears or the reality of one's life situation. But I feel like nature is such a good place to do that. And where I was at that point in my life. So the year before that, being a veteran, having served in Afghanistan, my reality was really shaken up when I saw the fall of Afghanistan all over the news, and it ended in pretty horrific fashion. And I was just deeply questioning, like, what was the point of 20 years of war, both from a macro level and then a micro level, like the small part in the war that I played. And that amidst other life challenges, navigating a divorce, seeking happiness on the corporate path, but not really feeling fulfilled. And amidst all that, I just started going out to nature by myself. And again, not easy, but I was like, if this meditation thing is real, like I'm going to figure it out. And I just started to connect with myself and with nature amidst a couple trips.
Is that something that you had studied before, or was that just like an intuition thing that you felt to go out in nature?
Intuition.
Yeah, I find when we're all in the midst of chaos, it seems like just that common theme of getting out in nature, that's where we find the most peace.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about your relationship with nature and self-discovery and self-development and kind of the way that you've used it throughout your life as a reset button.
You know, it's interesting. I grew up as a city kid from New York, like just outside Manhattan in the suburbs. I never went camping growing up. I wasn't in the Boy Scouts or anything, but I just had this drive to go to war and to serve in the infantry. And amidst my journey into the Marine Corps and training for war, we spent a lot of time out in nature. And that's when I started to deeply connect and just enjoy being outside. So I think that the seeds were planted there, that when I faced uncertainty later in life, it was like, it just felt so natural just to create the space for myself to go and connect with the outdoors. And I think there's so much perfection in nature, even amidst like the brutality or the beauty of it, to be able to just be immersed in the perfection that is nature. It can be deeply healing.
I think sometimes our external world is a reflection of our internal world, and I just loved how you mentioned the perfection in nature. I think, especially as children or growing up, like, we're drawn to spaces that reflect the perfection inside of us. and maybe it's a little bit difficult to keep that on the forefront when we're adults and just busy working and going to school or in relationships and things like that. But the more that we can intentionally take that time to put ourselves in situations and circumstances that reflect who we really are, um, that also brings us more peace and presence and joy.
That was very well said. We seek environments or situations that reflect the perfection within us. Did I paraphrase that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
That was good. That was profound.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Because you were making me think about when I was younger, and I just have this vivid memory of laying in the backyard, and there were like these three big trees that I was looking up at, and I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8, and I was in the midst of the time where I was like, I grew up being abused by my father for like 9 years, and there's a lot of other stuff going on with that, but I loved being outside, and like it really did bring that sense of peace and reflecting who I really was, I think. And it also brought up a sense of freedom, I think, because growing up in abuse or chaos, like there's a lot that you can't control. And there's also a feeling of being controlled a lot. And so I think nature, whether we're a child or an adult, like really just gives us that space to experience freedom and point us in the direction of who we really are.
Wow. I so honor your journey and your courage and how you share the lessons and wisdom from your life experiences. It's amazing. And I so see what you're saying about the connections in nature and how that can be a bridge. Sometimes it's easy to get really sucked into our external environment in a way that it just seems like so controlling. And whether that's experiences that can be very, very traumatizing from childhood, like you experienced, or it can be just the noise of the world, the need to make money, news, social media. I can just kind of feel like it's all encircling and trapping. But the ability to go out into nature and experience that freedom that can come with that connection, even if it's in little windows or little ways, can lead to profound shifts in one's life.
Yeah, definitely. Anything's better than nothing, right? So going on a retreat or just like taking a few minutes out of your lunch break, going outside, taking a walk around, moving your body, that's another huge theme. I
Hmm.
know you are a ultra runner.
Hmm.
I'm curious about how you got into that and just what's your experience been like with that?
Well, I got into it amidst the year of uncertainty that I referenced before, going through a divorce and yeah, a lot of uncertainty. And I just started running and I realized that I felt good afterwards. And I actually wrote in my journal around that time. It's like, no matter what else happens amidst the divorce and uncertainty financially, no matter what else happens, I have running. And that became a cornerstone. And now I've, I can feel my running increasing to like where I want to continue to move up and to get to higher levels of ultra running in the ultra running community. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah. And that's actually not that important. What running is for me is just that daily ability to like reconnect, to connect with myself.
That
Yeah.
like your flow state, would you say?
And the consistency of it. And yeah, like the running itself is not actually that relevant, but running allows me to connect with myself and gives me the courage to face myself in the silence or like to be with myself in the stillness more often, which is actually more important to me than the running itself.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. That's how I feel about martial arts. I've been doing martial arts for a few years now, and it's like a lot of people, especially with women, they approach martial arts as it's good for self-defense and you got to protect yourself. And I'm like, yeah, like but I didn't actually think about that until like 2 or 3 years into martial arts. The reason I got into it in the first place was because one, like I just felt drawn into that space, just kind of following my intuition. But two, I think I just got hooked on the self-development aspect and the ability to feel that connection with myself and develop that connection with my mind, body, and spirit. Also, like feel the peace and the chaos almost. Like it's something that has kept me grounded and centered on God almost.
Peace in the chaos.
Yeah.
To
So,
cultivate that is profound.
and it sounds like that's something that you've been able to do through running.
100%. And
Yeah.
I also want to point out when we talked a couple of weeks ago, and you were like, "Yeah, I got a concussion," and I was like, "How?" And so, matter of fact, you were just like, "I got punched in the face." So I was like, "Oh, all right,
Like, oh, that makes sense.
it makes sense."
Yeah, no, it is funny. People ask me how, and like if they don't know that I do martial arts, I'm just like, yeah, I just got punched in the face. Like, are you okay? Like, yeah, it was voluntarily done. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about your time in the military. So, how did your time as an infantry officer in the Marine Corps shape your understanding of resilience?
Great question. In very powerful ways. Yeah, I mean, I met aspects of myself and learned about myself in very challenging environments, and I pushed myself to limits and beyond limits, which is so beneficial in this season of life as well. The difference and the challenge that I experienced within the past couple of years, and I'm still navigating, is that when I was in the military, I was pushing myself to and beyond my limits. But there was this foundational belief that I held on to about what the military stood for and what the US stood for. And what those are very valid things. I don't mean to negate the importance of that. But for me, as I watched the fall of Afghanistan later on, and those beliefs, the steadfastness of those beliefs wavered. I was like, oh man, and I went back to my Christian faith or just deeply questioned things. And it turns out that the beliefs that I once held on to that allowed me to like drive forward was that were actually quite porous, that I started going within. But still the same resilience that I discovered within myself in the Marines that allows me to now navigate this, maybe the journey in a different way. So maybe the way to sum all of that up is just confidence that I'm able to navigate the uncertainty, even if the drive behind my time in the military and right now is a bit different.
I love that. I think it just falls in line with running and nature and martial arts and just like any aspect of life. All like every experience that we have in this life is helping us to actualize who we truly are. And especially when there's that element of challenge in it with the military or like a sport or something, you have to go through hard times and embrace that challenge to build resilience and move into the next level of who you really are.
Well said.
Looking back, what was the hardest part about your time in the military? Something that maybe other people don't really think about when they think about the military.
Hardest part of my time in the military. I think each season in the military had its different challenges. I'd say for me, the hardest part, looking back on it, it was balancing my time in the Marines as a officer, right? And being responsible for everything my Marines did or failed to do, or at least being trained in that way and trying to hold that standard of damn near perfection. Like to be an officer in the military, as you know, or to be in the military in general, right? Like we have this very high standard of how we hold ourselves. And then in the Marines as a Marine Corps officer, it's like it felt like we had to try to exemplify perfection, which makes sense, right? We want to be as good as we can be.
Mhm.
So we can hold that standard and lead Marines and then come home every day and like be in a relationship and try to bring these two together. And there are shadow aspects of myself that I wasn't acknowledging as I was showing up as TJ, the Marine officer, that would come out in my relationship. And I just could not figure out how to integrate these two parts of myself.
Wow. I bet there are a lot of people who can resonate with that, who have served in the military. What what was the thing that helped you in the end with that challenge?
I think that's what I'm navigating right now is how to show up as myself as authentically as possible in any environment, whether it's on different social media platforms, whether on a podcast or like at a coffee shop I go to after this or at Burning Man versus in a Tool concert, like just showing up as I am. And it's so much more important than just like as I see it in this age of technology and moving forward into the future. I just find this deeply important for people, for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is the most positive thing looking back in the military that you experienced?
Oh my gosh, that it introduced me to nature,
Mhm.
right? So it's like, here's this super challenging environment to serve for 8 years in the Marines, and it came with things that I had to work through and right reflect on. But it also introduced me to nature, which has been the most connective and helpful and healing. And it's funny how that works, how our greatest challenges can also lead to right the greatest wisdom or healing.
I think without like try to think about your life without all the difficulties and challenges and trials that you've been through.
Right.
It's like what's even the point?
That's such a positive outlook or strong outlook because if you could see the wisdom in past challenges, like truly, and be open to the lessons that are there, then you can be, I find I can be more open to the current challenges in my life with the openness of like, what is this really trying to show me or teach me rather than why is this happening to me?
Yeah, and that's such a great point, being intentional about what's happening in the moment, because I think it's so easy to just go through the motions, and especially when you're having a really difficult time, you just are at the mercy of it. But if you just acknowledge that you're in a difficult space, take a step back, observe it, take your emotions out of the picture just for a little bit, just look for the lessons and what the universe is trying to teach you in that experience. You mentioned Burning Man. I just want to hear about that really quick because that's such a I've never gone to that, and it just seemed like such a cool experience.
Oh man, it's like the full expression of the human condition. So
Yeah.
much creativity, so much darkness, and so much light. Yeah, it's a really cool environment.
Give the listeners a little insight into what it is.
Yeah, so basically, it's a city that forms in the middle of the desert out in Nevada. And it's even difficult for me to describe it because it's not just like a music festival. Like people see it and they're just like, oh, Burning Man music festival. It is, but it's also so much more than that. So it's a city of like 60 to 80,000 people where people form different camps and each camp brings a unique offering or gift to the city, so everything you pay for your tickets to get there, but once you're there, everything like there's no exchanges of currency. It's people helping people. Anything that you want to experience, you can likely experience at Burning Man. I mean, you could like DJs and partying to like really cutting edge, forward thinking presentations on consciousness and AI to just really cool synchronistic type encounters.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like an experience that you would never forget.
Yeah, totally.
That's
Definitely
cool.
recommend if the opportunity
Yeah, would
comes up and
would recommend.
would recommend.
Cool. You mentioned synchronicities. I know that's kind of a big thing that comes up. I feel like in almost every conversation we have, but just like life synchronicities. What's your perspective on that?
I find deep comfort in the synchronicities, and I'm so open to. I mean, I've seen it. I've experienced enough synchronicities in my life to know that, like, okay, these two things that don't appear to be causally related are related at some level that I can't totally see the connection, but I'm witnessing the connection of two different things. And it just points to that this journey is working for me and that even amidst my own uncertainty, because I am in a season of uncertainty in life right now where, like my Instagram just got hacked and deleted. I don't necessarily have clarity on the way forward on how I'm going to like make money and stuff, but I'm just continuously trying to do the work and stay consistent. But the synchronicities let me know that I am on the right track, and that provides deep, deep comfort.
What How do you use faith through those synchronicities? What role does faith play in your life?
Yeah, deep, deep faith in divinity and God in the universe. That the more that I'm able to open to my own truth and be with it, the more that the universe will show the way. And it just requires the courage to keep stepping into it and faith that the patterns that are repeating in my life, they will continue to repeat, but more in my favor as I'm willing to feel it.
I love that. It sounds like there's a big element of trust in that equation too.
Huge.
Has it been difficult for you to trust God in your life?
Yes. Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. And I think a big turning point for me was realizing that like no one really knows what they're doing here. Like there's no human on this planet that I believe knows the totality of divinity or this experience. So then I just started to learn to, then I was like, all right, I need to learn to trust myself. And in that learning to trust myself is where I see the reflection of God in the path in front of me.
I think everything has to start within. Just like you mentioned, trusting yourself first helps you to trust God more. Loving yourself more allows you to love others more or accept love from other people as well. Cultivating peace within helps you to recognize where there's peaceful experiences without.
How did you come to that, Jess, to see the depth of starting within? You're saying something that's so profound and it resonates as truth. It's like in many ways, many deep ways, our outer world can be a reflection of our inner world. So how did you come to the depth of that awareness to begin to make that switch
Mm.
from the noise of the world to navigating through it focused internally?
The first thing that came to mind, honestly, was like having a dirty room. I don't know why. Just like I think I heard it from someone else that your dirty room is a reflection of your mental state of being. And at the time my room was like really dirty and I was like having a like difficult time in my life too. I'm like, that checks out. So yeah, just kind of a silly example, but I just started to take action and clean my room and then I noticed, oh, I feel a little bit lighter mentally. And then just looking for different ways to apply that in my own life. So recognizing, okay, what else in my environment is chaotic, we'll say. Um, and then just recognizing different relationships that like were draining my energy instead of helping me feel peaceful. And then you gotta like clean those up. And I think I just always had a deep reflective state of being. I remember being
Mm,
like 10 or 11 and asking my friend, like, if you had one life lesson or if you have something that you've learned from life, what would it be? And and just knowing like for myself, it was that it doesn't matter what happens to you in life, it matters what you do about it. And I've just always had that reflective nature and trying to figure out how my internal world relates to my outer
mm,
world because of all the chaos and craziness I experienced in the outer world, and then like the maybe a stark contrast between that and what was going on inside of me as a child. Like I knew I was full of light and love, and that's just not what
mm.
I was experiencing. And so I think my life journey, part of it has been trying to figure out how to balance things out and how to get what was inside of me out into my external environment. So I not only felt those things inside, I could see it in everyone around me too. If that makes
Wow.
sense.
I love how profound and simple that was in the way that like, oh, it was a dirty room that led me to really making that connection, but that connection
Yeah.
led so deep back within you, back into childhood experiences and the depth of your reflective nature.
I think inspiration can just hit at any time and it always goes deeper. It's when you hear somebody say something and it's so simple, like, oh, like, just one word or one phrase can really change your perspective on life and bring up stuff inside you that you weren't even aware of.
Mm, yes.
Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your academic studies because how old are you?
35.
You're 35. Okay, and so you have your MBA from Duke University, and you're currently studying depth psychology as a PhD student. I don't know many people who are pursuing a PhD or who have gotten a PhD at this time, or I don't know, 35 still seems super young to me to have a PhD. I just think that's so cool. What has driven you in your academic studies?
The irony is that I was a 17-year-old kid graduating high school, and all I wanted to do was carry a gun and go to war. And the
Mm.
only reason I went to college in the first place was because my mom wouldn't sign the papers because I was only 17. So I was like, I'll go to college for 2 weeks and then I'll drop out when I'm 18 and enlist in the Marine Corps Infantry. I applied to one school. I didn't even visit the school beforehand. And it just turned out that I got there, met the guys on the lacrosse team, got into the ROTC program, and I was like, all right, I'll stick with this. And so I'm so grateful for the military for this reason. One, they paid for my undergrad by way of an ROTC scholarship, and then I served for 8 years, so I earned the GI Bill. So the GI Bill paid for my MBA, and now is paying for the first half of this program. So that's a major catalyst, is that not only are they paying for school right now, but I'm getting BAH to go back to school, which is very grounding for me in this season of life. And then two, the field of depth psychology is something that I've become increasingly interested in over the past couple of years, to open to the unknown of the unconscious and to learn by way of great thinkers who have really done a lot of work to bridge from the known conscious reality that we're in to the unconscious, and how it could be shaped collectively, not just through individual means.
I would imagine that what you're studying right now ties in deeply with your work as a presence coach. I don't think many people have heard about a presence coach. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with that?
Yeah. I mean, I went through this on my own year of healing, so to speak, and I started running, started going out to nature, started cold plunging, experienced psychedelics, like all these like wellness type things. And I realized the connection between all of them was that they allowed me to experience my emotions in the present moment and begin to process and release them. So
Yes,
hence
that's
the
huge.
term presence coach. And that's essentially what I do with my clients, is to be present and to feel, process, and digest, process and release emotions.
Yeah, that's so cool. If someone's interested in working with you more, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
LinkedIn.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
And little plug for LinkedIn. Before I was working in corporate, I had never been on LinkedIn. But it's so funny, like we connected through LinkedIn, and I've met so many other amazing people through there. And it's not just like a job site. It's so cool. Like it's just a space that you can share your voice, you can share your story, connect with other people. Highly would recommend looking into that if you're kind of over the like TikTok or Instagram as platforms for social media. So definitely connect with TJ there. TJ, just want to say thank you so much for this conversation. I could literally talk to you all day, but what is one last thing that you want to leave for the listeners?
The importance of learning to trust yourself, the one in the mirror, before anyone and everything else, I think is super important in the future that we're moving into.
What's one actionable step that people can do to start trusting themselves more?
I don't know.
Just do it.
Just do it, whatever it is to build trust, whether it could be 5 minutes of meditation in the morning, it could be signing up for a 100-mile ultra marathon, or anything in between. There's not one way to navigate this thing. So it's important each person figures that out for themselves.
That's a great idea. Committing to a goal of something that you may not believe you can fully achieve right now, but that's where the growth comes in. Like working towards that, you're going to challenge yourself and grow that self-belief and build that trust in yourself as you're making it happen.
Yes, well said.
Because there's no joy or fulfillment that comes in life when you're just playing it safe and like there's no challenge or hardship, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Of course, we don't want to go to the extreme and create unnecessary hardship for ourselves. Like everything needs to have a purpose, but there's definitely that balance where, sitting on the couch and watching TV or scrolling through social media is that it's never going to give you what you really want.
Yeah, that balance is key. And the self grace that, because sometimes I find that I could take it too far in one direction or another. And then the self grace allows me to continue to find that balance.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you again, TJ. And please connect with TJ on LinkedIn. I'll add his link on the podcast episode. Whatever message that stood out most with you, write it down today. Share the episode with somebody who you feel like may need it most. Remember that you guys are worthy and capable of more, and keep building that self-trust, challenging yourself, and having grace for who you are and where you're at in your journey right now.